All right, hello everybody. Today's video is going to be a little bit more somber than our usual videos are. As many of you probably know, yesterday was 9/11, and on 9/11 we celebrate what is not celebrate, that's the wrong word, but we observe a holiday called Patriot Day. And so this slideshow is just kind of a quick introduction into the history of 9/11, what happened, and then of what Patriot Day is as well. So we're going to first look at a brain pop video that is going to help us understand what happened on 9/11. Then we're going to talk a little bit more about Patriot Day because, like I said, that is a national holiday that we observe to remember the people who lost their lives on that day, and then also talk a little bit about some things to remember, some important points. So our main idea for today is that the terrorist attacks on 9/11 were absolutely devastating for the country, and it's important to remember these events and the people who helped us through it and who continue to help us today. So we may know that it was an absolutely terrifying day when 4 planes were hijacked on September 11th, 2001. We also call this 9/11. So most of the time we hear about the two of the planes that were flown into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York. But there was also a third plane that was flown into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. The Pentagon is our kind of hub of military commanders and activity and things like that. And then there was also a fourth plane that crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. We aren't sure where this one was supposed to crash, but some people think it was headed for the White House, the Capitol, the Camp David presidential retreat in Maryland, or one of the different nuclear power plants along the eastern seaboard. The reason it didn't make it to those locations is that the plane passengers on that plane were able to fight off the hijackers and crash the plane into the field before it could reach its final destination. So the impact of these attacks were absolutely devastating. There were around 3,000 people killed between plane passengers, those in the buildings that were struck, and different frontline workers who were trying to save people. It was the biggest act of terrorism ever in the United States. Since then, airport security has become even stricter in many countries as they attempt to avoid a future terrorist attack like on 9/11. So the differences in flying between before 9/11 and after 9/11 are quite different as far as security things you have to go through. So the majority of lives that were lost on that day were the people who worked in the Twin Towers, especially the floors above the collision point, because people became trapped and stranded at the top of the burning skyscrapers. Also, 411 men and women working in emergency services lost their lives trying to fight fires and rescue people from the buildings. It was an absolutely heartbreaking attack, which is why Patriot Day was proclaimed by President George W. Bush and is recognized every year on September 11th. So on Patriot Day, the U.S. flags are lowered halfway, and there's also a countrywide moment of silence at 8:46 a.m., which is when the first plane crashed into one of the Twin Towers. So even though the attacks were in the U.S., Patriot Day is recognized by many countries worldwide, as the news really did impact people across the world. So I think that it can be really hard, especially since many, if not all of you guys, were not born in 2001. It can be really hard to kind of put yourself in the shoes of the people who are there. So I think that this page is really kind of impactful as far as looking at some of the numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a few seconds to look at this. So to give you guys a little bit of a window into why I think it's really important to talk about this, I wanted to quickly share my own memories of 9/11. I was in first grade at the time, right? No, that was a lie. I apologize. I was at the beginning of second grade. And I distinctly remember all of the teachers in the school that I went to. I went to a really small Lutheran school up through eighth grade. And I remember all of the teachers being really quiet and having a lot of TVs on that day. But then as soon as any kid walked into the classroom, they would turn the TVs off. We had the old big box tube TVs in the corner, like mounted in the corner of each classroom. And I mean, it was pretty crazy how quickly those TVs turned off. So all the kids could tell something was going on. There were a lot of people crying. A lot of kids came and got picked up early from school. Um, I remember out of my class of like 18 kids, I think there were only 10 of us left, maybe by the end of the day, 9 or 10 of us left, because everyone else had gotten picked up to go home. And then I remember when I, my mom came and picked me up from school, and she told me kind of what had happened. And as a second grader, I didn't completely understand, but the general, I guess everyone's emotions that day were so just dark. It was just a very dark moment for everybody. So even though as a second grader I didn't understand what was going on, you could still feel just how upset all the adults were around you, and it really made an impact on everybody. So this is why I think it's so important to continue to talk about these things. Your next activity in Canvas is going to be to look at a timeline of the events on 9/11. And then you are going to wrap up by reading a story of a student who was a student in New York on 9/11 and her experience.